The massive station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of metal and light. Viridian Station had stood for 3,000 years as the home of the Galactic Council. Inside its halls, hundreds of alien species worked together to keep peace across the stars. Today, the humans had come asking to join them. Corporal Kim Dae-ho stood at attention in his dress uniform. The blue fabric felt stiff against his shoulders. He had been to many places in his 32 years, fought in 3 different wars, but nothing prepared him for this moment. Around him, beings of every shape and size filled the great chamber. Some had wings, others had scales. A few floated in tanks of liquid. All of them were staring at the human delegation. Ambassador Park Hana stood at the front of their group. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. For 2 years, she had worked to bring humanity to this moment. Dae-ho was just here as her military advisor. He was supposed to stand quietly and look professional. That was the plan anyway. The High Chancellor Mortev sat on the highest seat in the chamber. His species looked almost like walking trees with bark-like skin and branches that moved like arms. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like wind through leaves. We have reviewed Earth's application for full membership in the Galactic Council. We have studied your history, your technology, your culture. Park Hana bowed slightly. We are honored by your consideration, High Chancellor. However, Mortev continued, there are concerns. Many concerns. A sharp voice cut through the chamber. I will speak plainly. Councillor Vexthar stepped forward. He belonged to a bird-like species with golden feathers and fierce black eyes. He served as the Council's military advisor. We have reviewed your military databases. What we found disturbs us greatly. Dae-ho felt his jaw tighten, but he remained still. Vexthar pulled up a holographic display in the center of the room. Human text floated in the air, translated into hundreds of languages for all the species present. Geneva Conventions, Hague Conventions, rules of war, war crimes. He said the last words like they tasted bad. You create rules for combat. You punish soldiers for fighting too effectively? Several council members made sounds of amusement. A reptilian delegate named Crixnull laughed openly. In my culture, we have a saying. The weak make rules, the strong make victories. Exactly, Vexthar continued. He pulled up more images. Lists of prohibited weapons, documents about treatment of prisoners, laws about civilian protection. You ban certain weapons. You establish guidelines for treating enemies. You even created entire courts to prosecute your own soldiers for winning battles. Park Hana stepped forward. High Chancellor, if I may explain, please do, Mortev said. We are most curious about this. In all our records, no other species has done such a thing. We want to understand why humans handicap themselves in this way. The ambassador took a breath. We created these rules to maintain our humanity during conflicts, to ensure that even in war we do not lose our moral center. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Vexthar spread his wings slightly. Morality in war? That is like asking for silence in a storm. War is what it is. You fight to win or you die. That you fail to understand this basic truth suggests your species is not ready for the realities of galactic conflict. The realities of conflict? Park Hana's voice had an edge now. With respect, Counselor, humanity has survived thousands of years of warfare on our own planet. We understand conflict very well. Yes, we reviewed that too, Vexthar said. He pulled up more data. Small territorial disputes. Resource conflicts. Your bloodiest war killed perhaps 3% of your global population. Tragic, certainly, but hardly unique. Most council species have similar histories. He looked around the chamber. Yet only humans created these elaborate rules afterward. Only humans treat war as something shameful that needs regulation. It is shameful, Park Hana said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Crixnull tilted his scaled head. Ambassador, war is simply politics by other means. It is a tool like any other. Why would you be ashamed of using tools? Because the tool is death, Park Hana replied. And death deserves respect even in war. Vexthar made a dismissive gesture. Pretty words, but they reveal the truth. Humans are too soft, too emotional. You create rules because deep down, you fear your own capacity for violence. You are children playing at warfare, trying to make it safe and clean. There is no such thing. Dae-ho felt something snap inside him. He had stayed quiet through the mockery. He had stayed quiet through the laughter. But this crossed a line. These aliens thought humans created rules out of weakness. They had no idea how wrong they were. Permission to speak, Ambassador, Deho said. Park Hana turned to look at him. Her eyes widened slightly. She knew that tone in his voice. She shook her head slightly. A tiny movement. Permission to speak, Deho repeated, louder this time. The chamber grew quiet again. All eyes turned to the human soldier. Mortef leaned forward. You wish to address the council, Corporal? Yes, High Chancellor. With respect, the council misunderstands something fundamental about humanity. Vexthar's feathers ruffled. You think a mere soldier can explain what your ambassador cannot? I think a soldier can explain exactly what you need to hear, Deho said. He stepped forward, leaving his position in the delegation. Park Hana looked like she wanted to stop him, but stayed silent. You believe humans created rules for war because we are weak, because we fear violence, because we do not understand the reality of conflict. That is correct, Vexthar said. Deho looked up at the counselor. You are completely wrong. We did not create rules because we are afraid of violence, counselor. We created rules because we know exactly what we are capable of without them. We created rules to protect our enemies from us, not the other way around. Bold words, Crixnell said. Can you support them? I can, Deho said. But I warn you, once you understand what human war crimes really mean, you will not laugh anymore. You will not call us weak. You will be grateful that we decided to make rules at all. Mortef studied the human soldier for a long moment. Very well, Corporal. You have the floor. Explain to us why we should fear a species that refuses to fight at full strength. Deho pulled out a data chip from his uniform pocket. I brought something. Classified material, declassified for this presentation with approval from Earth Command. With your permission, I would like to show the Council what human warfare actually looks like. Not the rules, not the laws, the reasons we made those laws in the first place. The High Chancellor nodded slowly. Show us. Deho inserted the chip into the holographic system. The cheerful lights of the council chamber suddenly seemed very bright. Too bright. In a moment they would see the darkness. They would see what humanity had done to itself. What humanity could do to them. He took a breath and began the presentation. Behind him, Park Hana closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. The rest of the galaxy did not yet. The holographic display came to life in the center of the chamber. Deho stood beside it, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked more like a teacher now than a soldier. A very dangerous teacher. Before I show you anything, Deho said, I need to understand what you consider warfare. Counselor Vexthar, you are the military advisor here. Please describe a typical conflict between council species. Vexthar's feathers smoothed. He seemed pleased to be asked. Very well. Most conflicts are territorial. Two species claim the same system or planet. They negotiate. If negotiation fails, they fight. Usually the conflict is decided by a few strategic strikes. Destroy the enemy's largest military installation. Eliminate their command structure. After this, one side surrenders and we mediate the treaty. How long do these conflicts last? Deho asked. Weeks perhaps, a month at most. And casualties? Vexthar thought for a moment. In a significant conflict, perhaps a few thousand deaths. Maybe 10,000 in extreme cases. Deho nodded slowly. And after the surrender, what happens to the losing side? They accept the terms of defeat. Territorial adjustments, resource-sharing agreements, sometimes a cultural exchange to prevent future conflicts. Vexthar spread his wings slightly. We are civilized species, Corporal. We do not seek extinction of our enemies. That would be wasteful. Practical, Deho said. Efficient, targeted. He turned to face the full council. Now let me tell you about human war. Let me explain why we needed to create rules. He activated the first image. A map of Earth appeared, dated 1914. This is my planet 130 years ago. Watch what happens over the next 4 years. The map came alive. Red spread across Europe like blood in water. Numbers appeared in the corner, counting. The dead, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. The numbers kept climbing. 10 million, 15 million, 17 million dead. This is what we call World War I, Deho said quietly. It lasted 4 years. The entire conflict started over the assassination of one man. Before it ended, 17 million people were dead. Another 20 million were wounded, many crippled for life. The chamber was completely silent now. The only sound was the soft hum of the holographic display. But the numbers do not tell the story, Deho continued. He pulled up new images. Let me show you how they died. The images changed. They showed trenches, long scars cut into the earth. Men lived in these holes like animals, covered in mud and filth. Bodies rotted in the space between the trenches, left to decay because retrieving them meant certain death. Trench warfare, Deho explained. Men would climb out of these holes and charge across open ground toward enemy positions. Machine guns would cut them down by the thousands. Sometimes an entire day of fighting would gain or lose only a few meters of ground. Then the next day they would do it again. And again. For months, Crixnall leaned forward. Why did they not simply stop? If the strategy was ineffective, because both sides believed they could outlast the other. They believed that if they just sent enough men, eventually the enemy would break, so they kept sending men to die. New images appeared, soldiers with faces wrapped in cloth, eyes wide with fear. This is a gas attack, Deho said. Chlorine gas, mustard gas, phosgene, we turned chemistry into a weapon. The gas would roll across the battlefield like fog. Men would breathe it in, their lungs would burn. They would drown in their own fluids right there in the trenches, surrounded by their friends who could do nothing to help them. Several council members made sounds of distress. One of the aquatic species left their seat abruptly. This was in the early 20th century, Deho continued. Before we had computers, before we had space travel, we were primitive by your standards, but we were already very, very good at killing each other. He pulled up the next set of images. 21 years after that war ended, we started another one. World War II, this one was worse. The holographic counter appeared again. This time the numbers climbed faster. 20 million, 40 million, 60 million, 70 million dead. 70 to 85 million people, Deho said. About 3% of the entire global population. We developed new weapons for this war, better ways to kill each other. The images showed massive bombers flying in formation. We built aircraft that could carry tons of explosives. We would fly over cities and drop fire on them. Incendiary bombs. They would create firestorms that burned entire cities to ash. We did this to military targets, yes, but also to civilian populations. We reasoned that destroying the enemy's industrial capacity meant targeting the workers. So we targeted the workers. Bexthar's voice was quiet. You bombed your own species? Deliberately? Yes, we called it strategic bombing. Later we called it a war crime and made it illegal. Deho's face was stone. We also developed biological weapons. Diseases engineered to kill. Plagues in bottles. Some nations tested them on prisoners of war. We also created death camps where millions of civilians were systematically murdered, simply because of their religion or ethnicity. Not for military advantage. Just because we decided they should not exist. The chamber erupted in noise. Council members shouted in their various languages. Some stood from their seats. Others demanded Deho stop the presentation. Mortef raised one branch-like arm. Silence. His voice carried weight and the chamber obeyed. He looked down at Deho. These images are verified? This actually happened. Every image is from our historical archives, High Chancellor. Verified and documented. This is why we created the Geneva Conventions, why we established war crimes tribunals. Not because we were weak, but because we finally understood what we had become. But surely this was the worst of it, Therasin said. The aquatic counselor had returned to her seat, though she looked disturbed. Surely your species learned from such horrors. Deho looked at her with something like pity. Counselor, I have not shown you the worst part yet. I have not shown you what made us finally stop and create the rules. I have not shown you the weapon that changed everything. He pulled up a final image, a mushroom cloud rising above a city. The cloud was beautiful in a terrible way, like a flower made of fire and death. This is a nuclear weapon, Deho said. Atomic fission. We split atoms and turned the energy into explosives. One bomb. One single bomb dropped from one aircraft. It destroyed an entire city in seconds. 70,000 people died instantly. Another 70,000 died slowly from radiation poisoning over the following months. The chamber was dead silent. Every eye was locked on the image. We dropped 2 of these bombs on cities, Deho continued. Not on military bases. On cities full of civilians. We did this to end the war faster. And it worked. The enemy surrendered immediately after the second bomb. He turned to face the council fully. But that is not the terrible part. The terrible part is that we kept building them. We built thousands of them. Bigger ones. Each bomb became more powerful than the last. We built enough nuclear weapons to destroy every city on Earth multiple times over. We pointed them at each other for decades. knowing that if anyone pressed the button, everyone would die. We called it mutually assured destruction. Vexithar spoke, and his voice shook slightly. But you did not use them. No, because we finally understood what we were. We looked at ourselves and saw monsters. So we made rules. We banned chemical weapons. We banned biological weapons. We created laws about treatment of prisoners, protection of civilians, limits on certain weapon types, not because we could not use them, because we could and did, and realized we must never do it again. Deho gestured at the images still floating in the chamber. These are war crimes, Counselor Vexthar. Acts we have made illegal. Things we have sworn never to do again. You asked why we handicap ourselves in war. This is why. Because without the handicap, we do not fight wars. We fight genocides. We fight extinctions. We fight until nothing remains. He deactivated the display. The images vanished, but everyone could still see them in their minds. You said we were too soft for the realities of galactic conflict, Deho said quietly. But your reality is not our reality. Your wars are measured in thousands of dead over weeks. Ours are measured in millions of dead over years. You fight until someone surrenders. We fought until we nearly destroyed ourselves. So yes, we created rules. We created them because we had to, or we would have no species left to save. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Mortef spoke. This council will adjourn to consider what we have learned. Corporal Kim Deho, you have given us much to think about. As the council members filed out, many would not look at the human delegation. Some looked at them with fear. Others with something like respect. Deho stood at attention until the chamber emptied. Only then did Park Hana approach him. That was not the plan, she said softly. No, ma'am. But it was necessary. She studied his face. Will they accept us now? Or quarantine us? Deho looked at the empty chamber. I do not know. But at least now they understand. We are not weak. We are dangerous and we know it. That is why we made ourselves follow rules. The question is whether they find that reassuring or terrifying. Neither of them had an answer. 3 hours later, Deho was called back to the council chamber. This time the room was different. Most of the seats were empty. Only the senior council members remained, along with 2 more humans who had been summoned from the diplomatic ship. Dr. Lee Yuna adjusted her glasses as she walked beside Deho. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. She had been working with the council for 6 months, helping them understand human biology. Now she looked nervous. They asked for me specifically. Do you know why? They want to understand if we are built for war, Deho said quietly. They want to know if violence is in our nature or our choice. Behind them walked Security Chief Baek Taeyang. He was older than Deho, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and scars on his hands. He had worked in military intelligence for 25 years. They will ask hard questions, he said. Be honest. Lies will only make this worse. The 3 humans entered the chamber. Only 7 council members waited for them, including Mortef and Vexthar. The High Chancellor gestured to chairs that had been placed in the center of the room. Please sit. This is not a trial. We simply wish to understand. They sat. Deho noticed that the holographic system was still active, ready to display whatever the council requested. Mortef spoke first. Corporal Kim showed us images of human warfare. They were disturbing, but images alone do not tell us what we need to know. We must understand the context. Why do humans wage war in such terrible ways? Lee Yuna cleared her throat. May I speak to this High Chancellor? Please, Dr. Lee. That is why we asked you to join us. The scientist pulled out a tablet and connected it to the holographic system. A human skeleton appeared in the air, rotating slowly. To understand human warfare, you must first understand human evolution. We are persistence hunters. Our ancestors survived by chasing prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We can run for hours without stopping. We can survive in nearly any climate. We heal from injuries that would kill most species. We are built to endure. She changed the image to show a human brain. We are also one of the few species that can imagine what others are thinking. We call it theory of mind. It makes us excellent at cooperation, at building societies, but it also makes us excellent at psychological warfare. We can imagine what will hurt our enemies most, and we do it. Vexthar shifted in his seat. You are saying humans are naturally violent? No, Lee Yuna said firmly. I am saying humans are naturally survivors. Violence is one tool among many. But when we choose violence, our biology makes us very effective at it. We do not tire easily. We do not give up. We remember injuries and plan revenge. These traits helped us survive as a species. They also made our wars more terrible than they needed to be. Crixnell, the reptilian counselor, spoke up. But surely all species fight to survive. What makes humans different? Baek Tai-yang leaned forward. Scale. When most species fight, they fight until one side has a clear advantage. Then the losing side surrenders because continuing is pointless. Humans fight past that point. We fight when we are losing. We fight when surrender would be logical. We fight because surrender feels like extinction, even when it is not. This does not explain the weapons, Vexthar said. The chemical agents. The nuclear bombs. Why create weapons that do not distinguish between soldiers and civilians? Taeho spoke quietly. Because we stopped seeing the enemy as people like us. When you dehumanize your opponent, anything becomes acceptable. That is what happened in our worst wars. We convinced ourselves that the other side was not really human, not really people. So burning their cities felt like destroying anthills. Necessary, clean, simple. The chamber was quiet. Mortef's branches rustled softly. And after you realized what you had done? After the nuclear weapons? We were terrified, Taeho said. For the first time in human history, we had created something that could actually make us extinct. Not just defeat us, extinct. Every man, woman, and child on Earth could be dead in hours if anyone started a nuclear war. So we created treaties. We reduced our arsenals. We made it illegal to build certain weapons. We did everything we could to put the monster back in the cage. But you still have nuclear weapons, Vexthar pointed out. We detected them in your defense satellites. Baek Tai-yang nodded. Yes, because we understand that the threat prevents their use. If we destroyed all nuclear weapons, someone would build them again in secret. Better to keep them monitored and make sure everyone knows that using them means everyone dies. It is not a perfect solution, but it has kept the peace for over a century. Therazin spoke from her water tank. I still do not understand the war crimes concept. You showed us terrible weapons, terrible tactics, but you also showed us that you made these things illegal. Why create laws that you will break in war? Laws are meaningless if no one follows them. Taeho stood and walked to the holographic display. May I show you something else? Mortef nodded. Taeho pulled up a new set of images. These were not from wars. They showed courtrooms, trials. After World War II, we held trials. We prosecuted our own soldiers and leaders for war crimes. Men who had followed orders were convicted and imprisoned or executed. We established the principle that following orders is not an excuse for committing atrocities. He showed images of soldiers helping civilians, medics treating wounded enemies, prisoners of war being fed and sheltered. These images are from the same wars I showed you before. Same time period, same armies. But these soldiers followed the rules even when it would have been easier to break them. They protected civilians when they could have ignored them. They treated prisoners with dignity when they could have killed them. Why? Vexthar asked. Why follow rules when you are already in hell? Because that is what separates us from monsters, Taeho said. Anyone can be cruel when they are afraid or angry. True strength is being capable of terrible things and choosing not to do them. That is what the rules teach us. Not that we cannot do these things. That we must not. Li Yuna stood and joined him at the display. May I add something? Taeho nodded. She pulled up brain scans, human neural patterns. We have studied what war does to the human mind. Soldiers who commit atrocities often cannot live with themselves afterward. They suffer from what we call post-traumatic stress. Nightmares, guilt, depression. Many take their own lives years after the war ends. She changed the image to show more brain scans. But soldiers who followed the rules, who protected civilians and treated prisoners well, they have less psychological damage. The rules exist not just to protect the enemy. They exist to protect the soldier's mind, their humanity. Without the rules, war destroys everyone it touches, even the winners. Mortef absorbed this information slowly. So the rules are not weakness. They are survival. You protect yourselves from becoming what you hate. Yes, Taeho said. Exactly that. Baek Tai-yang stood as well. High Chancellor, may I speak about military doctrine? Please. The intelligence officer pulled up more files. These are our current military planning documents, declassified for this presentation. You will notice that every strategy, every contingency plan, assumes that we might face an enemy as ruthless as we once were. We do not plan for nice enemies. We plan for enemies who will use chemical weapons, Biological weapons, nuclear weapons if they can. We plan for enemies who will target civilians and commit genocides. He looked around at the council members. And even planning for that, even assuming the worst, our doctrine still requires us to follow the rules. We train every soldier in the laws of war. We teach them what they can and cannot do. We tell them that they will be held accountable for their actions, even in the chaos of battle. Especially in the chaos of battle. Vexthar stood and walked closer to the humans. Let me ask you something directly, Corporal Kim. If humanity faced extinction, if the only way to survive was to break all these rules you have created, would you do it? Would you use the chemical weapons, the biological weapons, the nuclear weapons? Would you abandon your morality to survive? Deho met the counselor's fierce black eyes. Yes, if it came to that, we would do anything to survive. We are still human. Self-preservation is still our deepest instinct. Then the rules are meaningless. No, Deho said quietly. The rules exist to make sure we never reach that point. They exist to de-escalate conflicts before they become existential. If everyone follows the rules, wars stay limited. Casualties stay manageable. Surrender remains an option. The rules prevent wars from becoming total. That is their purpose. And if your enemy does not follow the rules, Crixnell asked, then we still follow them as long as we can, Deho said. Because the moment we abandon them, we become what we fought against. We become the monsters. And if we do that, even if we win the war, we lose ourselves. The chamber fell silent again. The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways the humans could not follow. Finally, Mortef spoke. We need time to discuss this among ourselves. But I will tell you that you have changed our understanding completely. We thought the rules made you weak. Now we see they make you strong. Strong enough to restrain yourselves. That is a rare quality in the galaxy. As the humans left the chamber, Deho felt exhausted. He had just taught an alien council about humanity's darkest moments. He had shown them things he wished did not exist. But the council chambers buzzed with heated debate. For 3 days, the senior members had argued about the human question. Some wanted to welcome humanity. Others wanted to quarantine Earth immediately. A few wanted something in between. Vexthar stood at the center of the debate, his golden feathers ruffled with agitation. I have reviewed the human records again and again. Everything Corporal Kim showed us is verified. Humanity has committed atrocities that no council species has ever imagined. How can we allow such a dangerous species into our alliance? Because they stopped themselves, Therasin replied from her water tank. Her voice was calm, which seemed to irritate Vexthar more. They saw what they were becoming and they changed course. Is that not admirable? It is calculated, Vexthar shot back. They create rules to appear civilized. But they admitted that they would break those rules if pushed hard enough. They said so themselves. Crixnell hissed thoughtfully. All species would break their own rules to survive. That is not unique to humans. What is unique is that humans created the rules in the first place. On exactly my point. Vexthar spread his wings wide. They needed rules because without them they become monsters. We do not need such rules. We have natural limits to our aggression. Humans do not. That makes them fundamentally dangerous. Mortef had been silent, listening to both sides. Now he raised one branch arm for silence. The question before us is not whether humans are dangerous. Clearly they are. The question is whether their danger is controlled or chaotic. Counselor Vexithar argues it is barely controlled. Counselor Therasin argues the control is genuine. We must decide which view is correct. Before anyone could respond, an alarm shrieked through the chamber. A young aide rushed in, her scales pale with fear. High Chancellor! We have received a distress call from Sanctuary Prime Colony. The holographic display activated automatically, showing a star map. A red dot pulsed in one sector. Mortef stood immediately. What is the nature of the emergency? The colony is under attack, sir. Krell Dominion forces. They are bombarding civilian centers. The Colonial Defense Force has been overwhelmed. They are requesting immediate military assistance. The chamber erupted in noise again. The Krell Dominion was a species that had been rejected for council membership 2 years ago. They had not taken the rejection well. Skirmishes had occurred on border worlds, but nothing like this. This was a full invasion. Vexthar pulled up tactical data. His eyes widened. The Krell fleet is massive. 3 battlecruisers, multiple support ships. The colony has no chance against this force. Where is our nearest response fleet? Mortef demanded. 3 days away at maximum speed, the aide reported. The colony will fall long before they arrive. Silence fell over the chamber, heavy and terrible. Sanctuary Prime was home to over 200,000 civilians from a dozen different species. Without help, they would all die or be enslaved. Then a calm voice spoke from the entrance. The human ship Indomitable is 6 hours away. Everyone turned. Captain Choi Subin stood in the doorway in her military uniform. She was a tall woman with short black hair and steady eyes. She had commanded the Indomitable for 5 years, protecting human cargo ships in deep space. Her ship had been assigned to guard the diplomatic delegation. Park Hana stood beside her, looking grim. We picked up the distress call on our own channels. Captain Choi is offering assistance. Vexthar's feathers went flat against his body. Absolutely not. We cannot allow 200,000 civilians, Counselor, Captain Choi said quietly. They will die if someone does not help them. My ship can be there in 6 hours. Your fleet needs 3 days. But your ship is one vessel, Crixnell pointed out, against 3 Krell battlecruisers. You will be destroyed. A small smile touched the captain's lips. The Indomitable is a human warship, Counselor. We have different capabilities than you might expect. Mortef studied the human officer. Captain Choi, we have just spent 3 days learning about human warfare, about the terrible things your species is capable of. Now you want us to unleash you on an enemy? Yes, High Chancellor. Because you also learned that we can control ourselves, that we follow rules even in war. She pulled up tactical data on her own tablet. I can show you my operational plan if you wish. Every aspect of it is designed to minimize civilian casualties and comply with the laws of war. But I need authorization to enter Council space in a warship, and I need it now. The Council members looked at each other. This was the test they had not expected. A chance to see if humans truly followed their rules when real violence called to them. Vexthar stepped forward. If we authorize this, I must observe. I will go on your ship, Captain. I will watch what you do. If you commit atrocities, if you break your own rules, the Council will hold humanity accountable. Agreed, Captain Choi said without hesitation. You are welcome aboard, Counselor. I warn you, though, combat is chaotic. You may see things that disturb you, but you will also see that we follow our doctrine, even when it would be easier not to. Park Hana looked worried. Captain, are you certain? This is a risk not just to your crew, but to Earth's entire diplomatic standing. Ambassador, 200,000 people are going to die if we debate this for 3 more days. I can save them. I will save them. The politics can wait. Mortef made his decision. Very well. Captain Choi Subin of Earth, you are hereby authorized to enter Council space and engage Krell forces at Sanctuary Prime. Counselor Vexthar will accompany you as an observer. May your rules prove as strong as your weapons. Thank you, High Chancellor. Captain Choi turned crisply on her heel. Counselor Vexthar, we depart in 30 minutes. Bring whatever equipment you need for observation. As they left, Daeho fell in step behind them. Captain Choi glanced back. Corporal Kim, are you joining us? Yes, ma'am. If humanity is going to prove itself, I want to be there. Besides, ground forces may be needed for civilian evacuation. Fair enough. Report to the Indomitable immediately. The human delegation moved quickly through the station. Behind them, the Council remained in emergency session. Some members prayed for the civilians on Sanctuary Prime. Others prayed that the humans would not prove to be the monsters they feared. On the Indomitable, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. The ship was not large by human standards, but it bristled with weapons and armor. It had been built to protect cargo ships from pirates. Now it would face a real military force. Captain Choi stood on the bridge reviewing tactical data. Vexthar stood beside her, his keen eyes taking in everything. Your ship is heavily armed, he observed. Yes, we operate in dangerous space. Pirates, rogue elements, sometimes worse. How many crew? 240. Plus 30 Marines for boarding actions and security. Now 271 with your delegation and our diplomatic staff. Vexthar studied the tactical display. The Krell outnumber you significantly. 3 battlecruisers, each one larger than your ship. Yes, Captain Choi said calmly. But they are designed to fight other Krell ships. Our weapons and tactics will surprise them. And if you lose, then we lose. But we will buy time for civilians to evacuate. Every minute we hold the Krell's attention is another minute for people to reach the shelters. The ship's engines thrummed to life. Captain Choi gave the order. All hands, this is the captain. We are en route to Sanctuary Prime to provide emergency assistance. We will be engaging hostile forces. Remember your training. Follow the rules of engagement. Protect civilians first, engage military targets second. This is what we train for. Let us do humanity proud. In the ship's lower decks, Daeho checked his equipment. Around him, Marines did the same. Lieutenant Han Ji-woo, their platoon leader, walked among them. She was young, maybe 28, but her eyes were older. She had seen combat before. Listen up, Han Ji-woo said. We may need to go groundside for evacuation. If we do, remember the training. Civilians first, always. We do not engage unless fired upon. We do not use excessive force. We follow the rules even if the enemy does not. Clear? Clear, sir. The Marines responded in unison. Beside Daeho, a young Marine named Private Nam Gi-hun was checking his rifle nervously. Corporal, you think the Council is watching? I know they are, Daeho said. Vexithar is on the bridge right now. Everything we do will be reported back. So we do it right, exactly by the book, even if it is harder. Especially then. Daeho finished checking his armor. The Council thinks we are monsters trying to behave. We are going to show them that we are professionals who choose to behave. There is a difference. The ship accelerated, pushing towards Sanctuary Prime. In 6 hours they would arrive at a battle. The Krell Dominion had no rules for war. They did not limit their weapons or protect civilians. They fought to win by any means necessary. Against them, humanity would fight with one hand tied behind their back by their own laws. And they would do it anyway, because that was what those laws demanded. That was what being human meant in 2247. In the council chamber on Viridian Station, Mortef watched the Indomitables' signal disappear from their sensors as it jumped to faster-than-light travel. Therasin floated beside him. Do you think they will succeed? I do not know, Mortef admitted. But we will learn something important either way. If they win while foe... The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sanctuary Prime system. Immediately, alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display lit up with contacts. 3 Krell battlecruisers orbited the colony world, firing down at the surface. Smaller ships moved between them, support vessels and troop transports. Captain Choi stood perfectly still, absorbing the information. Beside her, Vexthar's feathers ruffled with agitation. They are bombarding civilian centers. Look at the targeting patterns. Those are residential districts, not military installations. I see it, Captain Choi said quietly. Her voice was ice. Communications, open a channel to the Krell Fleet Commander. Channel open, Captain. Krell vessels, this is Captain Choi Subin of the human ship Indomitable. You are attacking civilian targets in violation of Council space. Cease your bombardment immediately or face consequences. The response came quickly, a harsh voice with a strange accent. Humans? The Council sent humans? Laughter echoed across the channel. We have heard of you. The species that makes rules for war. How amusing. Return to your station, little ship. This is Krell business. Final warning, Captain Choi said. Cease bombardment of civilian targets. Or what? You will file a complaint? Report us to the Council? More laughter. We are not afraid of your rules, human. Go away before we add your ship to the burning colony. The channel went dead. Captain Choi turned to her tactical officer. Colonel Oh Sung-min, what are our options? Oh Sung-min was the ship's special operations commander. He had been studying the battlefield since they arrived. The Krell are overconfident. They have spread their forces to maximize bombardment coverage. The battle cruisers are in high orbit. The support ships are lower. They expect no resistance. Exploit that, Captain Choi ordered. Weapons free on military targets only. Avoid civilian areas. Navigation, bring us in fast and low. The Indomitable dove into the system like a hawk striking. Vexthar gripped a rail as the ship accelerated. Captain, you're going directly at them. This is madness. This is necessity, Counselor. They outgun us, but we are faster and more maneuverable. We need to use that advantage. The ship closed the distance rapidly. The Krell fleet finally noticed the threat. One battlecruiser turned ponderously to face them. It fired, massive energy beams cutting through space. The Indomitable rolled, dodging most of the fire. What it could not dodge, it took on reinforced armor. Return fire, Captain Choi ordered. Target their weapon systems only. Disable, do not destroy. Human railguns fired, sending projectiles at incredible speeds. The shots were precise, surgical. They struck the Krell battlecruiser's weapon ports, destroying the guns but leaving the ship's hull intact. Vexithar watched in confusion. Why not destroy them? You have clear shots. Because there are crew on those ships, Captain Choi said. Soldiers following orders like my own crew. I will disable their ability to fight, but I will not kill them if I can avoid it. That is the rule. The Indomitable swept past the first battle cruiser and engaged the second. More railgun fire, more precise shots. The Krell ships were powerful but slow. They could not track the human ship's movements. Within minutes, 2 of the 3 battle cruisers were disabled, their weapons offline. But the third battle cruiser had positioned itself directly above the colony's main city. Clever, Oh Sung-min muttered. They are using the civilians as a shield. If we fire on them, our shots might hit the surface. Captain Choi's jaw tightened. Then we do not fire. Helm, position us between that battle cruiser and the colony. If they want to shoot at civilians, they will have to shoot through us first. The Indomitable moved into position. The Krell battlecruiser fired immediately. Energy beams hammered into the human ship. Shields flared and failed. Armor buckled. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Hull breach on Deck 4, someone reported. Casualties reported. Medical teams responding. Hold position, Captain Choi ordered through gritted teeth. Do not return fire. They will move eventually. Vexthar stared at her. You are letting them shoot you. You could destroy them easily if you fired back. And risk hitting the city below? No, we hold. The Krell commander came back on communications. Foolish humans. You sacrifice yourselves for strangers? For species that are not even your own? Captain Choi's eyes were hard. That is what civilized species do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. You should try it sometime. We should destroy you, you can try. But every second you waste on us is another second those civilians have to reach safety. So please keep shooting. On the surface, Daeho's Marine platoon had already deployed via drop pods. They landed in the main city's central district, where thousands of civilians were trapped between Krell ground forces and the bombardment. Lieutenant Han Ji-woo gathered her squad leaders. Orders are simple. Extract civilians, protect evacuation routes. Rules of engagement. Do not fire unless fired upon. Do not use excessive force. Protect civilian life above all else, even our own. Even our own, sir? Private Nam Gi-hun asked. Especially our own. We are soldiers. They are not. Move out. The Marines split into teams, moving through the damaged streets. Daeho led his squad toward a collapsed building where life signs had been detected. Krell soldiers spotted them and opened fire. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air. Return fire, suppressing only, Daeho ordered. Do not target to kill unless necessary. The Marines fired back, their shots precise. They aimed for the Krell soldiers' legs and arms, disabling rather than killing. It was harder this way, more dangerous, but it was the rule. Corporal, they are not showing us the same courtesy, one Marine shouted as plasma fire intensified. I do not care what courtesy they show us, Daeho snapped. We follow our rules always, now move. They reached the collapsed building. Inside, Daeho found a family of 6 civilians, different species all huddled together in terror. We are human military, he said in Galactic Common. We are here to help. Can you walk? The civilians stared at him. One, an elderly member of Therazin species in a portable water tank, spoke. You are human? But we heard humans are dangerous. We are, Daeho said, helping the elder to their feet. But not to you. Come on, we need to get you to the evacuation point. His squad formed a protective perimeter around the civilians, moving through streets under constant fire. Twice, Krell soldiers tried to use other civilians as hostages. Both times, human snipers took precise shots, disabling the enemy soldiers without harming the hostages. It was incredibly difficult shooting, requiring patience and skill and a willingness to risk their own lives for perfect angles. But they did it anyway. Back in orbit, the Indomitable was taking serious damage. Captain Choi's face was tight with pain from burns on her arm, but she remained at her post. Engineering, how long can we hold this position? 10 more minutes maximum. After that, structural integrity fails and we have to withdraw or be destroyed. Then we hold for 10 minutes. That is the mission. Vexthar watched as the crew worked with desperate efficiency, patching damage, rerouting power, keeping the ship between the Krell and the colony. No one complained. No one suggested they move and save themselves. They simply did their duty. Why? Vexthar asked quietly. Why sacrifice yourselves like this? Captain Choi looked at him. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. Because someone has to, counselor. Because if we do not protect civilians, who will? Because our rules demand it and our honor requires we follow those rules. But you could win this battle easily if you ignored the rules. One missile into that battlecruiser would end this. Yes. And it would also kill hundreds of Krell crew members. Soldiers like my own people. I will not do that if I have another choice. Even if the other choice is harder. Especially if the other choice is harder. Oh, Sung-min suddenly stood up from his console. Captain, I have an idea. Their ship is using the colony as a shield. But what if we use their own ship against them? Explain. Their vessel is massive and slow. If we move beneath them at close range, we can use their hull to block their own guns. Then we can fire up at their engine section, disable their power without risking shots toward the colony. Captain Choi considered this for exactly 3 seconds. Do it. Helm, execute Colonel O's maneuver. The Indomitable rolled and dove, passing under the Krell battlecruiser at point-blank range. It was insane flying, the kind of maneuver that required absolute precision. The human ship scraped against the Krell hull, metal screaming. Then they were in position. Fire, Captain Choi ordered. Railguns fired straight up into the Krell ship's engineering section. The shots were perfect. The massive vessel's engines exploded, but the explosion was contained, directed away from the colony. The battlecruiser went dark, powerless. The Krell commander's voice came over communications, shocked. What did you do? Disabled you, Captain Choi said calmly. Your crew is safe. Your ship is intact but powerless. You will be taken into council custody to face trial for war crimes. But you will face trial, not execution. That is how civilized species handle defeated enemies. On the surface, the Krell ground forces realized their orbital support was gone. Some tried to fight. Others tried to flee. Lieutenant Han Ji-woo gave clear orders. Accept surrenders. Protect fleeing enemies from civilian revenge. By the book, people.